Hey everybody, it's Jesse at Fantasy Customs. Thanks for tuning in today. I really appreciate that. If you haven't already, make sure you subscribe. Our subscribers and my viewers have made these videos possible. Alright, so you might already recognize this video from, if you're a subscriber or you watch a lot of my videos from a previous video on Chevy lifter tick. Not only does this thing have a bad lifter tick that I'm probably going to have to remove the head and replace the lifter in, but it also has super low oil pressure. Mostly at idle it'll come up when you start driving it, but as soon as you get back idling, it just wants to fall on its face to almost zero. Sometimes it'll hover around 5, 0, whatever. Anyways, it's horrible. So if you want all the details on this, catch the end of the video. I'll keep talking of why these things are happening, other possible issues that you might have that aren't related to what I'm about to check out on this thing. So what I'm about to do though is I'm about to drop the oil pan so that I can see the oil pickup tube. This is the screen. This has a screen on the end and it pumps the oil from the bottom of the oil pan up through your motor. Okay, so where this thing attaches to is right on the front of your oil pump. It goes up inside there, and there's an O-ring there that oftentimes goes bad. I've heard that 9 out of 10 times when you have an actual oil delivery problem, it's because this oil pickup tube, the O-ring on it has gone bad. So number one, what you're going to want to do is go ahead and drain the oil. I've already done that on this, and then I'm not going to hold your hand through this thing, but I will show you the bolts and whatever. There's 3 21mm bolts on this front diff. Obviously I'm rocking the 4x4. I don't mess around with the 2-wheel drive stuff. So we're going to have to drop that diff down and get a couple extra inches of clearance to remove the oil pan and get it out of our way so that we can work in there good. So 3 21mm bolts, drop the diff. I think there's 15 10mm bolts on the oil pan. And once you get that dropped down, then there's another bolt holding this oil pump tube, oil pickup tube onto the bottom of the oil pump, and then you'll be able to pull it out and inspect the O-ring. So without further messing around, you want to catch me talking about other issues that may be causing your oil pump, oil issues, low oil pressure issues, catch it at the end of the video. I'll go ahead and explain all that stuff. But for now, let's get under the truck and get to work. Now, one thing I did forget to mention is this belly pan here to protect your motor and your diff and whatnot. I'm going to go ahead and remove that. There's 4 15mm bolts on it. Get that the heck out of the way. Okay, so there's one 21mm up there holding the top of the diff. Let's see. Where's the other ones? I know there's this 21 right there. I can't remember if this cross member needs to drop down or come out or not, but if it does, those there and those are there. I guess I need to take a look at it. There's your little sensor. Make sure you remove that sensor before you go ahead and pull the transmission. It's not the easiest sensor to get out. There's one problem with it. And let's see. I think that's gonna drop everything. Oh, maybe these two right here actually gotta come off, it looks like. And yeah, that should be enough for the front. And I've got 2 21mm crescent wrenches, one on one side, one on the other. We're going to turn that guy loose. Okay, now that we spun that first one loose, we're going to go ahead and get on the second one. It's right in front of the front drive shaft here. Open down on this side. Get your 21mm up in there. Wrench her loose. Okay, now that I pulled those two, I can already see it drop a hair, and I'm going to pull these two over here on the passenger side of the diff. Oh, there it goes. And there it's loose. So it's hanging down. That gave us an extra couple inches, and now we can attack that oil pan. So let me get started on that now. Alright, to get the oil level sensor out, I just get on there with some vice grips and give it a... this is really hard to do one-handed. Couple of turns, and then at that point it's loose, so that you can just spin it out. And I don't really like that the wires get tangled, but I guess I can just spin it this way. You can see how it comes out. It's easier when you spin it towards yourself, but just don't remember to tighten it back up. Don't forget. Don't remember. What am I saying? Don't forget to tighten it back up. But yeah, so spin it, and you can see it good, and get it unplugged. Alright, so now time to take all the 10 mils out of the oil pan. There's one. Alright, you don't need to watch all these. So I forgot to mention the two bottom bell housing bolts. One right there, one right there. You need to remove those, both 15 millimeters. And then your oil pan is loose. I guess I didn't really remember removing this cross member here, but I don't see it coming out any other way, so looks like I'm gonna have to get on those and remove those, and then these two nuts over here, and then we'll have this cross member out of there so I can lower this oil pan down out of the way. Okay, I pulled the oil pan. I'm looking down in there. There's a teeny bit of sludge down there, but you know, I've seen worse. The last one I pulled off of a truck was a lot worse than this. So, whoa, didn't mean to do that. Darn it. Do I really have to get both hands on there? There we go. Ooh. Doesn't look like it's the right size, but wow, that was really loose. Glad that didn't fall out, blow the motor up. Maybe. Anyways. Oh, it wants to pop off. Alright. There's that one. I think I better take the next one off too, for sure. Alright. Alright. I don't think I need to do the last one, but I might. Whoa. Dripping oil down here. Darn it. Where's my rag? Alright. So I was thinking this O-ring looks okay, but the more I started to look, there's a little slit almost all the way through the thing right there, and that's the problem. I was told when I bought this thing that a new oil pump. Okay, so other things that you might possibly be causing your truck to be reading low oil pressure is that if it's reading 0 all the time and it's not doing anything, if it doesn't even, I think it's supposed to go back and forth, maybe. Now I'm not quite sure, but definitely ask me some questions if you need to about this, but for the most part, if it's not reading any oil pressure at all ever, or like trying to move around a teeny bit, one thing you might want to do is actual put a manual gauge on there. There's a spot where you can read the actual pressure of the engine, oil pressure, without the stupid little electronic sensor that they have. So go ahead and read that. If it still reads 0, then obviously you have an oil pressure issue. Otherwise, you might have a faulty sensor. Let me go through these things. So what I'm looking at is the oil pickup tube O-ring. Or possibly your oil pickup tube, the bolt came loose and the whole pickup tube came out of the oil pump. I feel like it's the old 350s where they actually just sit up inside there and there's nothing else that holds them in. I can't remember exactly, but this one definitely has a bolt, so it should, if the bolt's in there, it shouldn't have fallen out. But anyways, another possible one is your oil pump. Your oil pump can go bad, and if it's gone bad, that might be your whole issue behind low oil pressure. Now another thing could be this, is that your bearings are too worn. There's clearances where the oil is going all over the place, and if those bearings are wiped out, you'll probably hear some knocking, but they might just be super worn and it's throwing your oil pressure right past them, out the sides of the bearings, and you're losing it all. And that's possible. Mainly I hear about that on the camshaft bearings on these for some reason. Apparently you have a real worn camshaft bearing, maybe it's not making much bad noise, but it's causing a major oil pressure loss to the point where not much oil is getting to the rest of the motor. Another possible thing, besides your bearings being too worn, could be that you have a clog in the screen. There's a little screen behind the oil pressure sensor reader, and if that screen gets clogged, it may just read no oil pressure or low oil pressure a lot, or fluctuate or whatever. But if you clean that screen and put it back together, maybe with a new sensor or not, whatever, you might be able to get your oil pressure reading better. Or there could be some debris actually clogged in one of the passages somewhere in the motor. That's always possible if you're running your oil way too long, got a bunch of gunk in there, whatever. It's possible that that could get clogged up. And another thing that I've heard of is actually oil pressure, oil filter collapse. And I've never actually seen it myself, but I've heard of it, and somehow your oil filter collapses on itself and it's no longer letting oil flow through it anymore. So that's possible. Okay, so the video got cut off when I pulled the pickup tube and I was showing you the O-ring that had a slit in it. What I was trying to say was that obviously I knew the problems that this truck had before I even bought it, but I got to talk to the owner and he let me know that he had replaced the oil pump right before all this stuff started happening. So that gave me a really good clue into what was going on. And so most likely the way he replaced this oil pump, well, for sure he had to remove the timing cover, but I'm just guessing that he didn't drop the oil pan, which is another way to check out this pickup tube O-ring, is just removing the timing cover. But it's hard to get the bolt out of the pickup tube with the oil pan there because it's kind of in the way, but it is possible to do, and some people like to do it that way. And either way, I'm just guessing that, you know, he didn't have a lot of room, and that's how somehow he nicked this O-ring, getting it back in there. But anyways, some people may prefer to do it that way, because if it doesn't end up being a problem with the O-ring, you're right there to throw a new oil pump in there if that's what you want to do to try and solve the problem. But there also another thing that could cause the oil pressure issue that you wouldn't be able to check then is if your pickup tube screen is clogged, either with a bunch of sludge or some kind of debris got on there and isn't letting oil into the pickup tube itself. So that's another possibility. Another possibility that one of my friends who's a good mechanic mentioned, and shout out to you, Randy, thanks for reminding me. Or actually, I didn't even really know about this whole thing, which is cool to know, and it's a good thing to keep in mind. If your motor was just rebuilt and you install it and you have no oil pressure and you know that it should have oil pressure, but it doesn't for whatever reason, that it's possible that they forgot to put in this thing that's behind the reed cover or the timing cover. I think it's on the passenger side behind there. It's right above the oil pump. It's called a dumbbell, and it's just the stock one's just a little plastic piece that goes in there. I believe it has an O-ring on it, so either they forgot the O-ring or they forgot to put the dumbbell in there altogether, and you'll have no oil pressure. Also, sometimes that dumbbell is even a problem if it is in there and it's the stock one, because the plastic ones can have quite a bit of clearance in between them, and that's not a good thing. And so if you're building a high performance application, or you're putting a new oil pump in there that's like a high volume oil pump or whatever, and you want really, really good oil pressure, they make an aftermarket billet, either aluminum or whatever it's made out of, but it's billet, it's metal, with very, very little clearance, much less clearance, and is a really good aftermarket little tidbit for like 15 or 20 bucks. I can't remember who makes it, but you can Google it. Google, you know, billet dumbbell for one of these motors, and that's a great little part to add to your build. So I would suggest getting that. And if it was just rebuilt or not rebuilt, but it's spewing oil like all over the ground, it could be that somebody forgot to put in one of the oil galley plugs. So that's another possibility that you could check out. Other than that, if there's any other things that any of the viewers think of that I didn't mention in this video, go ahead and share that in a comment below so that I can learn about it or remember it if I'm just forgetting it, and all the viewers as well, so that we have all the information to tackle one of these issues if we're having an issue like that with low oil pressure or no oil pressure. Besides that, you can be on the lookout for the next video that's coming out about these Chevy trucks. It's going to be a lifter and camshaft replacement, and so you'll get to see the oil pump and stuff and what I'm talking about with it being not very much clearance. However, it's not going to probably be on this motor. It's going to be on one of the new motors, one of the new DOD, displacement on demand, the AFM style stuff with when the motor doesn't have a load on it, it runs on 4 cylinders. Those newer motors are especially prone to lifter failure, even at lower mileage than these older 99 through 06 style. I think they came out with the AFM DOD in 2008. Don't quote me on that, but I believe that's when it first started coming out. So you'll get to see the lifter and camshaft replacement on that motor. But it'll be a good thing to watch even if you're working on one of these 99 through 06 motors, because pretty much is exactly the same process. And even if you're doing lifters or camshaft on an older 350 style 5.7 or an even older first style LS motors, or some of the bigger LS motors, any of the LS style motors, this process of replacing lifters and camshaft is pretty much going to be the same process. Anyways, so I think that pretty much covers everything. I'm having a lot of fun making these videos, guys. I really hope you're having fun watching them, and I hope you're learning something too. And so win-win for both of us. Everybody have a good day, good night, whatever it is, wherever you are, and keep on wrenching. You take care. Bye.